You know, one thing I've learned since becoming an adult is that it really doesn't matter how much money you make if you never really learn how to manage your money. Because me personally, I know a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but I know people, and I've heard plenty of stories of people who have pretty good salaries, they have pretty good incomes, but yet at the end of the day, they're still struggling financially. They don't have the margin that they would like to have to invest or save long term. And on the surface, their life looks really good. They might have a nice car. They might, like I said, they might even have a nice job. They might have a great career. So everything on surface looks good, but it doesn't really matter how much money you make if all of your income is being taken and consumed by debt or other obligations. See, I think the problem is that most people think that having a good job automatically gives you security for life. Or of course not for life, because we all know we can potentially get fired or laid off one day. But people think that having a good job automatically equals security. But when you really look at how, I guess, people's finances work in this country and in this world, you start to understand that a good job doesn't necessarily change anything. Sure, it might give you more income and it might increase your cash flow, but a lot of people still have bad habits to begin with. And if you never learn to master your financial habits that, can cause you to struggle and can cause you to be poor and have low margin, it doesn't matter how much money you make. You're gonna always be somebody who is struggling at the end of the day because you don't have the principles, you don't have the good habits that you need to properly manage your money. So in a sense, a good job doesn't erase poor money habits. It just gives them more room to hide. But most people still fall victim to those habits at the end of the day, like I said. And then when you combine the fact that most people, once they get a good job, right, they tend to have what we call lifestyle creep. So you start to spend a lot more money after you get a good job. And it makes sense because, especially let's say in my example, I'll use myself as an example. I did not grow up in a wealthy family, but I went to school, I graduated, and now I make pretty good money. I'm not rich by any means, but I definitely have the means to buy myself pretty nice things here and there. So it's upon me to not do that, of course, and to take the initiative to try to save for the future and to put my desires for consumer goods, whatever it may be. Me personally, I like to buy like technology goods. Like I like to just buy random stuff at Best Buy and shit. That's my problem. But excuse my language. But the point being, it's easy for you to have lifestyle creeping to spend more money once you get a good job, right? But the problem with that, and we're gonna link it back to the original point and how you can have a good job but still be poor at the end of the day, is that just because you are making more money, you have to learn how to keep your expenses always relative to how much money you make. But the problem, like I said in the beginning, is that most people have poor money habits to begin with. So even if you're making a normal income, you are probably the average person is probably still going to have debt. So then when they double their income, when they get more money, they're just going to think, I've already had debt, it's normal. Or I've already been having, I already go out to eat every day. Now I might as well continue to do so, right? So all of these habits that you might have that are negative, like I said in the beginning, it's easier to hide them when you start to make more money, right? But I think the real trap and why I wanted to make, I guess, the second point in relation to the first point is that once your expenses start to increase relative to your income, it makes it extremely hard for you to escape the trap even more. You can have a nice home, you can have a mortgage, but if you're pushing your margin, your financial margin, very thin every month, you're not going to be able to really have a surplus. And maybe a surplus isn't important for some people. Maybe I want you guys to leave a comment on this. Somebody try to give me a rebuttal. Is it important to have necessarily surplus? In the instance that I'm thinking of, maybe the person is still able to save money. Which, okay, if you're still able to save money, which I guess is ultimately the goal of most of the things I talk about, I think you should be trying to avoid debt and making smart financial decisions so you can ultimately save money and have a future for yourself financially, right? So if that person is able to do so, then I guess my example is not valid. But I think the reason why I keep drilling home this point and why I'm advocating for you to be aware of lifestyle inflation, especially if you're a young person, because we're all going to make more money the older we get. That's just how life works, right? If you can avoid spending more money, the more money you make, you have the ability to save more money, the more money you make. And if you can save more money, what does that mean? You can become wealthier. You can have more investments, buy more assets, etc. So most people have car payments, rent/mortgages, debt minimums. Nowadays, you have buy now, pay later. You have all of these forms of debt that are meant to keep you financially trapped. And if you're a young person watching this, I would advise you to understand how the system works and to recognize that the system is designed to keep you trapped. having obligations financially that prevent you from saving money and investing for the future is what they want. They don't want you to save for the future. They don't want you to buy assets that gain value over time. They want you to spend your money on debt. They want you to be a debt slave. And that's why I advocate for all of these points I'm pushing. Smart financial habits, avoiding lifestyle creep, not thinking that just because you have a good job, you're good and you can spend as much money as you want. It's beyond that. This is why I say you could be somebody working at McDonald's, bro. You can work at McDonald's and make $20 an hour. But I guarantee you, let's say you a 23-year-old man and you work at McDonald's making $20 an hour, but you actually busting your ass and you working as many hours as you possibly can. And you actually are frugal with your money and you got a roommate and you don't spend stupidly. You can still start to progress up the social ladder. And that's why I like to make these points so bare bones, because if you just understand, it's not necessarily impossible to achieve some sort of financial prosperity. I mean, again, I understand, bro. The system is a scam. This is why I try to advocate to avoid debt to begin with, because once you fall into the debt trap as an 18, 19-year-old, it's almost impossible to get out of. But if you can avoid that shit while you're young and just learn some basic financial principles, you are on a path to success, I feel like. It's not that complicated. And a lot of people have the victim mentality like, oh, it's not possible, Brandon. I can't do it. It's a scam. Shit, if you want to gamble your way to be rich, bro, you can do that as well. You can try to do a little bit you could do that on the side, but we have to try to have a balance of being smart with our investments and trying to just manage our money a little bit. And then on top of that, to culminate everything, I guess, if you're a young man, I think the biggest, obstacle that we have is the social pressure to spend money. It's almost impossible to go through life without spending money in some capacity. And I don't want to just say like spend money, because I'm not saying we shouldn't be spending money, but you guys know what I mean. We have gambling sites. You have like it's a million things that are designed to steal your income and to steal your attention nowadays, which prevents us from gaining wealth. So you have to work extra hard and you have to be extra diligent in your efforts to maintain concentration and to maintain financial concentration, let's call it. The ability to maintain savings over time, to keep your eye on the prize, to stay focused on your career. These are all things important for young men to start to do and realize. So all of that to say, I guess, I don't really know how I got to this point. I just started ranting, but ultimately, I don't really think, people should realize a good job does not mean that you're going to be set for life. Yes, we all need to strive for having a good job. A good job is something that we should definitely achieve, but understand that it's more than just having a good job. You can have a nice income and still have a poor financial life if you never learn to master basic financial habits, such as saving, thinking about the future, and, just on a basic level, just being long-term minded. That's pretty much all I'm trying to say. Yeah, as always, we are in the video there. It's being boy Brandon Davis, and we out.